You're watching Adam the Bull on the BetRivers Network.
Welcome, everybody, to the latest edition of the Bullpen with Adam the Bull, brought to you by BetRivers. You think I would have checked? I've been sitting here for 20 minutes before doing this podcast. You think I would have checked my mic levels before and not waited till the podcast started? This podcast, as always, is brought to you by BetRivers. If you're not using the BetRivers app, you're missing out. So make sure you check it out today for all the latest lines, props, futures, whatever you're looking for. Today is trade deadline day. Decided to, usually I record my Tuesday podcast in the morning, but didn't want to do that today in case the Browns were busy. And it's a good thing, well, the Browns weren't busy. They made one trade, but it happened after I would have normally recorded. It is now just after 4 o'clock, so the trade deadline has passed. And we'll get into what the Browns did. We'll look ahead to the Cavaliers trying to become the first Cavs team ever to go 9-0 tomorrow night when they play at New Orleans. We'll get into that as well. So a lot to get to this afternoon. So let's start with the trade deadline. The Browns make one trade when it's all said and done. Za'Darius Smith traded along with a 2026 7th-round pick to the Lions for a 2025 5th-round pick and a 2026 6th-round pick. It's, nothing to get overly excited about. You get a 5th-round pick next year, and then you move up from the 7th to the 6th round the following year. I think the Browns probably did the right thing, not totally, making a million trades here. Not that you're going to make, obviously we've talked about the fact the Browns have no shot or no realistic shot of making the playoffs, but this organization's done enough losing, tearing it down to the studs, especially in the middle of the season, I think is bad for this team. I think there's something to be said for trying to win as many games as you can. I think the development of certain players on this team would have been hurt if you traded a bunch of guys. And that was unlikely anyway, because obviously, you don't see teams trading a bunch of guys on trade deadline day. There was only, maybe 10 deals today, most of them for 6th and 7th round picks. The only really big trades, Marshawn Lattimore, who got traded from the Saints to Washington, along with a 6th round pick for a 3rd, 4th, and 7th round picks, or 3rd, 5th, and 7th. I can't remember the exact. I know they got a 3rd. We saw Jonathan Mingo get traded to the Cowboys for a 4th round pick. I have no idea how they got a 4th round pick for him. Mike Williams traded from the Jets to the Steelers for a 5th round pick. The Bengals got Khalil Herbert for a 7th round pick. Steelers also got Preston Smith in a trade for a 7th round pick. Was it Tre'Davious White, I believe, was traded to the Ravens to maybe help their secondary. But they traded Tre'Davious White and a 2027 7th round pick for a 2026 7th round pick. So most of the trades today were silly and mostly not that meaningful. So in terms of the rest of this year, it's an opportunity for some other players on the Browns. Isaiah Thomas, Agbo Okoronkwo, to get more of an opportunity to play now that you have traded Za'Darius Smith. So that's the only thing in terms of on the field that matters here. But I'm glad in the end that even though he played terribly this week, I'm glad in the end. I'm sorry, not Isaiah McGuire. I knew that was sounding wrong to me. I didn't want them to trade Jameis because I'm fascinated by what I've seen so far the last 3 weeks from Cedric Tillman, and I think he's shown you a lot of promise. I also was talking with Mary Kay Cabot today, and she talked about the Browns trying to get Jamari Thrash, their rookie 5th rounder, in the mix a little bit as their 4th wide receiver. And I just feel like with Jameis, again, I understand he played terribly this past week. He's going to be up and down. I expect him to play well against New Orleans in 2 weeks when they come back from a bye. But if you want to continue to see what Cedric Tillman is made of and what you might have in Jamari Thrash, then I think going with Jameis is the best way to kind of get a feel, because you want to be able to evaluate as many guys as possible. And I know some people would argue, well, we need to evaluate DTR. I think the reality is the Browns don't look at DTR as a starting quarterback. I think he's too, beyond the talent that may be there, he's just too frail. I just can't see him being a starting quarterback in the league. I guess you never know. And I do think at some point this year he will get an opportunity. I don't have a problem with that, but not right now. I would think if Jameis is healthy, let him play at least another 3-4 games. And you want to play DTR the last few games, okay. But for now, I'd like to see, how well some of these young pass catchers can play with Jameis Winston. Also, you're looking at, now this one really doesn't matter, DTR or Jameis Winston, outside of the fact that, Jameis will do a better job of, in general, avoiding the rush and staying in the pocket. But, you want to see how is DeJuan Jones developing at left tackle. He's going to continue to start off ahead of Jedrick Wills. I would assume at this point the Browns will let Jedrick Wills walk at the end of the season. So, and can you move forward with DeJuan Jones as the left tackle? I think that's a huge question mark. There's major concerns about his weight. That may be a problem that he's dealing with his entire career as someone who has dealt. I know I'm not an NFL player, but I can understand what DeJuan is dealing with in terms of weight. And it's tough, and it's going to be an issue for him because he was over 400 pounds earlier in the season, and you can't play effectively that way. And obviously it leads to injuries, and he's dealt, for a guy his size, he's dealt with a lot of injuries the first couple of years in his career, and you have to be able to rely on your left tackle. And if DeJuan can't stay healthy, then they can't rely on him going forward as their left tackle. So I think that's another thing you're looking to see. Hey, is Cedric Tillman a legitimate starting wide receiver? Is DeJuan Jones a legitimate starting left tackle? Those are two things we're trying to learn. And frankly, another thing that we are going to hopefully get a yes answer to in the last 8 games of the season. Can Nick Chubb get back to being a frontline running back again? He hasn't looked like it these last 3 weeks coming off the injury. It shouldn't be a surprise. I'm not going to lie. And I thought Nick Chubb would look like Nick Chubb. That was unfair. And he hasn't. And it's certainly not all about him only, but the quality of the offensive line has never really mattered much for Nick Chubb, so I'm not going to blame it for the reason he's not playing well now. He doesn't look like the same guy. But that shouldn't have been surprising. And the question is, he's a free agent at the end of the year. I think we'd all like to see Nick Chubb come back, but what's he going to look like the rest of the season? Is he going to, at some point this year, get back to being a frontline top back, or is this what we expect going forward? I don't know. And maybe it's possible he doesn't look great the rest of this year, and the next year, a full 2 years from injury, which we've seen from a lot of other guys. Maybe he's better, and back to what he was or close to what he was. But that's, the Browns are going to have to make a decision before that. So you're hoping we see it this year. In addition to the Za'Darius Smith trade today, the Browns also released Quentin Jefferson from there. So two veteran defensive linemen gone. I think we'll see Mike Hall Jr. get a little more playing time. I talked about Isaiah McGuire and Agbo Okoronkwo on the outside. I think now with this other move of Quentin Jefferson, we'll also see Mike Hall, who was a second-round pick, the Browns' highest draft pick this year. In fact, their highest draft pick in a few years. He was suspended earlier in the season, and he's been back. And now this, I believe, is his third week back, or when they play again. So he's going to also get an opportunity. So it'll be good to see those young players, especially McGuire and Hall, who have both been drafted in the last 2 years, get an opportunity to play a role on this defensive line and see what they're made of. So The continued development, and the Browns have a decision to make on Greg Newsome. Couldn't think of his name for a second. They have a decision to make on Juan Thornhill, probably. Not a young player, but they've got a decision to make there. So while the Browns are no longer playing for the playoffs in any realistic manner, there are important things to figure out the rest of the season, including do they need to make a change at the top at general manager, and maybe do they need to make a change at coach? You know, I was on Sunday, I was talking with you folks, doing the live post game, and I talked about how I would fire Andrew Berry and not fire Kevin Stefanski. And a few of you said to me, hey, Bull, you know, if you fire the GM, you got to at least give him his choice at head coach. And if that choice is not Kevin Stefanski, then he should be able to bring in his head coach, his choice. And that's fair. As much as I like Kevin Stefanski, I think he's a solid coach having a bad season, and I would bring him back again. I do think they need to make a change at GM. I think there needs to be a new GM deciding on who's going to be the next potential franchise quarterback of this team. And if that GM doesn't jive with Kevin Stefanski, then unfortunately, I think those fans are right that you would probably have to move on from Stefanski in that situation. All right, let's switch it up to the Cavaliers. Cavs won last night at home. Another tough battle with the Milwaukee Bucks. Two great games, two real close, fun, exciting games, playoff atmosphere games against the Bucks. 116-114, the two wins over the Bucks. They beat them by a total of 3 points. Cavs had a big halftime lead. They played a terrible third quarter. It was probably their worst quarter of the season so far, but then they bounced back in the fourth. And Darius Garland had a magnificent, he was sensational in this game. Darius with 39 points, 15 of 22 from the field, 7 of 11 from three, 8 assists. His assist-to-turnover ratio has been sensational. Jared Allen, 14-15, 6 assists, 2 steals, and a block. Mobley was 17 points, a little low on the rebounds. He didn't shoot particularly well in this one, but 3 assists and 3 blocks on a night where Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley were 11 for 30 from the field. That's like 35%. And they still beat the Bucks. So it was a nice win, and obviously they're playing really well right now. Dean Wade missed the game with injury, which seems to always hold him back. Isaac Okoro started. I much prefer Isaac Okoro coming off the bench. I think it's a much better role for him. Sam Merrill led the bench with 12 points. So that's the deal there. So the Cavs are 8-0, and with their 8th straight win on Monday, Karis LeVert didn't play also. But with their 8th straight win Monday, they've tied a franchise record for the best start in the history of the franchise. Started the season at 8-0, and it was never with LeBron. It was, I can't remember what year it was. I keep forgetting. Sometime in the 70s. And the Cavs will try to get to 9-0 for the first time in franchise history. The game is tomorrow night against the New Orleans Pelicans. The Pelicans are 3-5 to start the season. 2-2 at home. The Pelicans, though, have lost 5 of their last 6 after starting 3-2. I'm sorry, they won their first 2, and then they've lost 5 of 6 since their only win against Indiana. Their last game was last night, I think, against the Blazers. So the Pelicans aren't a particularly good team. So, and what's I don't know. I know Zion Williamson didn't play. He never, this guy, I'm not sure how much, to be honest, I'm not sure how much he's played so far this season. I know Max would probably know, but I'll just go look it up myself. This guy's always hurt. There's always something with him. He's played 5 out of 8 games. Man, what a shame that guy's such a talent, but he just can never stay on the court. I don't know. Maybe, who knows? But anyway, I think the Cavs have a great chance to get to 9-0. And then if they do, if they get to 9-0 for the first time in franchise history, then Friday night is going to be a lot of fun, because on Friday night, they play Golden State in Cleveland. A 7:30 start. Golden State's off to a great start. The Warriors are 6-1 on the season so far. And so that would be pretty cool. Steph Curry's only played 4 games on the season so far, so we'll see about him. But even with Steph Curry playing 4 games, Buddy Hield's been great for them, averaging 22 a night. And they're still 6-1 to start the season. I don't think they've lost on the road. So that should be a lot of fun Friday, especially if the Cavs are 9-0. Because, I talk all the time about regular season basketball, very blah. It's hard to get too excited about regular season basketball. But a winning streak, and especially a winning streak to start a season, is always super exciting. It takes things to another level in terms of your interest. I said to, Mikey McNugget said to me yesterday or today that there was an atmosphere at the Q that he's never heard for a regular season game, on a midweek game against, if it's LeBron, okay. But besides that, the atmosphere was different. I was like, yeah, it's because they're on a winning streak. That creates a buzz that's just different. If the Cavs were 7-1 right now instead of 8-0, I'm sleepwalking through the New Orleans Pelicans game tomorrow. Like, it's on in the background and I'm not locked in. But because they're 8-0 and we got this undefeated start to the season buzz, well, I'm locked into them playing the Pelicans. The Cavs are one of only, I think, 3 teams that are undefeated so far. The Cavs are 8-0. No, it's only 2. My bad. And the Thunder are 7-0. The Suns, the Warriors, and the Celtics have 1 loss apiece. So there you go. Cavs would be the number 1 seed in the East right now. For what that's worth. By the way, the gap between the 3 seed in the East and the 12 seed in the East is a game and a half. It's early in the season. It's really a pointless statistic. Finally, bad news from the Guardians. David Fry. They went to check his elbow out. Obviously, he was unable to play the field the second half of the season. He was dealing with an elbow issue. Worse than they thought. He's having surgery on his elbow. He's going to miss 6 to 8 months. Best case scenario, I would think he's back in May. Worst case, he's back in July, August. The Guardians are going to need to go into the season assuming that he is not going to play the first half of the year. I think that's how you have to go into this offseason. Also, one-time top prospect, one-time excellent reliever, James Karinchak has been cut by the Guardians. We know that Shane Bieber, Alex Cobb, Matthew Boyd, Austin Hedges are free agents. Guardians have a lot of work to do. They're going to have to replace Fry. They need a legitimate right fielder. They're going to have to decide if they're bringing Hedges back at a backup catcher. They need at least 2 veteran starting pitchers. And I would add to even what's already a strong bullpen, I'd add another veteran to there as well. All right, that's going to do it for me today. Thanks to Max and Z for producing as always. Thanks to all of you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. One other thing I want to tell you, we got another really cool deal going on at BetRivers. Check out the BetRivers Squares. Players can play same-game parlays on college football and NFL games to earn a square. Our exclusive Squares game offers additional chances at profit boosts, bonus bets, and many $10,000 jackpots. Again, check out the BetRivers Squares on the BetRivers app or BetRivers.com. I'll see you live on Thursday at 2 p.m. Where else but right here in the Bullpen with Adam the Bull, brought to you by BetRivers. See you, everybody.